Welcome to Bears on Tap, hosted by Quinten Krzysko, Sonny Verma, and the one and only Ron Luce, bringing you all the news, analysis, and opinions on the charter franchise, Chicago Bears.
The Chicago Bears were without their starting right tackle, left tackle, a defensive tackle, a linebacker, nickel cornerback, and cornerback one today. After another wait through the noon slate to get to the 3:30 start time, it was an ugly and brutal game all afternoon and into the evening. But at the end of the day, that was two desperate 1-2 teams. And one team wanted just a little bit more. For the first time in a long time in an all-out battle, the Chicago Bears were that team. And the book on this Bears team for a long time has been, if the game's close, they're going to lose. They're not going to make the plays to win. But Ben Johnson's Chicago Bears, they wanted it more. I'm exhausted, and I was just sitting on my couch throughout all of it. But we got another victory Monday going into the bye week. My name is Quinten Krzysko, joined by Ron Luce and Sonny Verma. We are Bears on Tap. Gentlemen, starting with Sonny, how are we doing this evening?
You know, Q, they're not always going to be pretty. And, I've lived many a Sundays watching a game like that, ultimately sulking at the end, knowing that a W just got away. And now that, we were able to actually come out on the good side this time around, again, it's nice to be able to relax into the bye week with a positive feeling as opposed to sulking.
Ron, how you feeling?
Good, better, best. Sonny puts it perfectly in his tagline here. It's a new day and a new dawn for Chicago Bears football. And it's not even because, this Bears team's going to win the Super Bowl, or this Bears team's going to do this, or this Bears team is undefeated. It's the fact that this Bears team has the will, the minds, and the matter to come back and win tight games like we saw today. And sometimes it's going to be your most unlikely playmakers that make those plays. Son of a bitch, if Victory Monday doesn't feel good coming up tomorrow, man, because the Bears are 2-2 and we're going into the bye week, baby. Let's go.
Going into the bye week, and hopefully they can find some better health in this bye week here, because we saw Braxton Jones leave the game. Darnell Wright didn't even play, as I alluded to in the intro. There's a lot of bodies that are kind of stacking up on the Bears injury list that hopefully we can get out of this better with. Hopefully you can see an Austin Booker coming back out of the bye week. Some stuff like that might be a bit of a shot in the arm. But gentlemen, today we saw a Bears offense that couldn't seem to do diddly poo, in the words of Jim Mora. They were shocked. They were stunned. In my opinion, Vegas punched them in the mouth and they had to react. And going into halftime, it was really feeling like old Bears, right? Like they're not gonna bounce back from this. But coming out of half, they found some answers. They found some stuff, and they started to get the football moving. It was unfortunate that they got so many turnovers in the first half that they couldn't truly capitalize on.
Frustrating.
But at the end of the day, they made it all work. But do you guys have any other thoughts on the game or any other things that stood out to you?
Just that it's, this just may be what kind of season it's going to be. It's just one of those where we have an awful game and then we followed up with a really good game, and then we're kind of feeling high coming into the game, and then you watch that first half and we're like, what's this team? It's I don't know. I think it's a team in many sort of ways trying to find out its identity. I was having a conversation with a buddy earlier at the end of this game, and we're wondering, hey, how good is this football team? I don't think we have an answer yet through 4 games. But again, even though they don't know their identity, I think they're growing game by game, and getting victories like this in moments like this, away from home against a Las Vegas team with a defensive player who's just having the game of his life against you, having Caleb, running for his life and yet only being sacked one time, and then ultimately, having that quarterback had a 12-play drive, I think that was in the fourth quarter, setting up the game-winning touchdown, or yeah. So I don't know, it's just one of those up and down seasons and one of those up and down games, but as long as it ends up with this final result, I'll take it.
I think too, gentlemen, I've always been a firm believer in good teams will be up at halftime, but great teams will win the game in the second half. And again, I don't know if I'm labeling this Bears team as great just yet, but from a culture standpoint, I would label it that way because they feel like they are starting to find a rhythm of where whatever they see in the first half, they can find a way to counter, even when it's not pretty. You effectively called the outcome of this game, by the way. I think you're probably one of the few people on public record that was comfortable saying the Raiders are going to punch them in the mouth. It's going to be a close game. How do they respond? And they responded more positively than the common Bears fans used to because, Sonny, as you said, that first half felt like the old Bears. But I think that second half kind of starts to exemplify and give you visual evidence of the Ben Johnson difference and the cultural difference that's in that locker room right now.
Right. And this, I think it gets a little understated because I do think the Raiders lack for talent across their entire roster. But they do have some very high caliber football players. Like, they have a handful of blue chip players in my mind, and they have an outstanding Hall of Fame worthy head coach in my mind. Pete Carroll's teams don't sit down. Pete Carroll's teams don't go into games lightly. Pete Carroll's teams fight with every inch, every piece of will that they have, especially in home games. This Vegas team held the Chargers 20 points at home in their only other home game. Like, they're not nothing because they have that fight. They have that. I'm a firm believer that teams take on the identity of their head coach. Pete Carroll's a son of a bitch, for lack of a better term. Like, he is a fighter. He is gonna, I want that guy on my side in a fight, right? Like, that's the kind of coach that Pete Carroll is, and that's the kind of teams that he leads. And we actually saw the Bears defeat a team with that mentality today, which it's just been rare. But and one other thing you mentioned, Sonny, about Max Crosby having, seemed like anything he wanted today, right?
Yeah, he was feasting.
Caleb only took one sack.
Right. Incredible.
I mean, Max Crosby found ways to make his impact in other aspects, like the batted passes, and he got an interception off one of them. But frankly, I'll take that over them getting hits on the quarterback over and over, because they found ways to mitigate that, even if it came at the cost of some other things. But let's see what's in the comments here. We got Seth in the comments saying, let's go. Yeah, let's go. But let's go ahead and get to our first segment here.
The baddest man.
All right, so for anyone unfamiliar, the baddest man is that's a bad man right there. Like that, it's anyone who the Raiders walking off the field, they turn around and one last look at this guy and they're like, I don't want to see that guy again anytime soon. And right after the game, Mr. Ron Luce here texts me going, can I go first for my baddest man? So Ron, the floor is yours.
Q, when we think of the baddest men, we think of men that will your way to victory, either on the offensive side of the football, perhaps a great quarterback or an elite skill player at one of the multiple positions. Maybe it's a guy on the defensive side that imposes their will on any given game. Maybe that's a pass rusher. Perhaps that's a defensive back. Today it was a defensive back, but not for defensive purposes. The most neglected piece of football has been more relevant than ever before in this newest season of the NFL. The kickoff changes. You and I are on record about the new kickoff rules of saying, why not try knuckleballs and see if that affects the kick return? Multiple teams are now starting to try that. You are forcing special teams to be more a part of your game. There's a reason the Bears handed out a pair of 2-year contracts to predominantly special teamers right at the end of last season. And one of them today is the baddest man that came off the edge and got a paw on that kick. Josh Blackwell's a bad man. And there's a reason that he's paid to predominantly be a special teamer. And I'll tell you what, he stepped in today with McLeod getting hurt in the game. He stepped in and started to play a lot of nickel late too. Josh Blackwell's a bad dude. And he made a huge difference on the special teams side of the football today. I know we can all sit here and say, well, people have made the arguments. Well, every play matters. And of course it does. But in the moment when it matters most, who steps up to make the play? Josh Blackwell did that today. That's a bad man.
Josh Blackwell, he showed out today. Like in that, it was funny when they were starting to kick. I was my nerves were rocking, and I was like, just block it, don't let them even get it up there. Just block it. And I was like in my head, but don't get a penalty, but block it. And Josh Blackwell came through for us with that block off the edge. The second one of those today, which is historically the hardest place to block a kick from. I don't know why that seems to be changing. We saw 2 of them today. I think we might have seen one last week as well. Sonny sent me a video right before we got on of Josh Blackwell after the game talking about how the Bears long snapper gave some intel on the Raiders long snapper about how when to time up his snap, like he does this and then he snaps it right away. That might have played a factor, but it's odd that we're seeing a bunch of these happen in the NFL right now when historically they don't happen.
I just wondered because, with the modern era of sports, like everybody's looking for every edge that they can get. The Chicago Cubs have their minor league systems, like, the way you round first base has to be in a certain sort of way. So it actually doesn't surprise me so much in the NFL that, any sort of inch of help that you can find is worth it. And it proved itself today.
But Ron, did you have something to add?
I was going to say, I think more than ever, when you really look back on the history of the NFL, the kicking game is what people think when you think special teams, right? But not the complete package of the kicking game, rather just the guys booting the football, right? Your punter, your field goal kicker. More than ever, field goal kickers are some of the best athletes that they've been at their given position in the history of this league. I think we're starting to get that way, though, with special teams, where it's been so, dare I say, simplified at the professional level because of touchbacks and how relevant those became and why the kickoff rules changed at the professional level. It was just boot it out and play football, boot it out and play football. Why even have the kickoff? Just to ban it, just to get rid of it, right? Special teams has been so dismissed at the professional level for such a long time. I think now because the athletes are better than ever and the NFL is forcing these teams to be good at special teams because of the new kickoff rules, the teams that aren't well coached on the special team side are getting exposed. And I think that's what we're starting to see because bad, maybe not necessarily bad coaching, but complacent coaching will get you to a point where, okay, as soon as the holder gives a hand, the long snapper snaps it immediately. Whatever, no big deal, right? That's the little edges that you guys are talking about now of where these teams are getting a victory, right? There is no trying to disrupt pattern like you do on the offensive or defensive side of the football with special teams. But there's absolutely advantages to be had. Recent research that I've had, all the crazy film that I watch nowadays, I've seen that with a couple different teams where guys off the edge have almost blocked kicks because the special teams get so lulled into complacency and a routine. And if you've got observant players that have an inside edge, whether it's just scouting or they know the guy, that's a huge difference when it's all said and done that you can take advantage of. And the Bears potentially, or not even potentially, the Bears did so today. They found something they could exploit in a big moment, and they did it.
I'm just thinking, imagine being like Scott Daly now, and you see this dude at like a long snapping camp in the off season, and the dude's just like, come on, man. You couldn't have told me this last year. Like, it's just that picture is hysterical in my mind. But moving on to Sonny, who is your baddest man for the Chicago Bears today?
You know, we talked about the struggles of that Bears offense to kick off the show, and deservedly, it was very, very ugly. But what wasn't ugly was, despite being a lot of men down on the defensive side, our defense really came to play and set up the offense to score some points. Unfortunately, the offense couldn't execute, but I wanted to give some love to Dennis Allen today, just because he had the culture on that defensive side. He had the guys ready to make these sort of plays, and this is why you hire a guy like Dennis Allen, to make guys like Geno Smith's life hell. And I just think that, because of the struggles on the offensive end, the position that the defense put the offense in is a large part of the reason that Las Vegas never was really able to stretch the lead. I mean, as bad as we looked today, we were always within a one-score game, and that's largely because of the defense, the turnovers. And so my guy for baddest man is Dennis Allen.
I think that's a great choice, and because I'm looking at this like in my notes here, I've got my first two options are Kevin Byard and Tyreek Stevenson.
Mm-hmm.
Dennis Allen is a defensive back by trade, right? Like he played defensive back at Texas A&M. He came into the NFL as a defensive back. I believe his father was a defensive back coach at some point. The guy knows defensive back, and he's coaching these defensive backs up very well right now. He's getting a lot out of Tyreek Stevenson that a lot of us were questioning coming into this year, whether that was still there, whether that was ever there. That was starting to become the question with Tyreek Stevenson. And I'll tell you what, with Jalen Johnson going down, that's the best player on this defense, right? That's your ace card up your sleeve. As long as I have him, I can force help to other portions of the field. Tyreek Stevenson had to become that guy. And through 2 games, Tyreek Stevenson has been that guy, which is very exciting as a Bears fan, and goes a ton of credit towards Dennis Allen, towards Al Harris, and the coaching that they're giving this defense, because they're making plays, and Dennis Allen's putting his guys in positions. Dennis Allen's always been a poker player, right? He's going to take a lot of gambles out there, but he's a good poker player. He tends to have a really good feel for the game. Like Vic Fangio has that too, where he just feels the game very well and has a good idea of what the offense is going to throw at him and how to arrange his guys to help them capitalize on it. We saw that with Kevin Byard a ton today. Not to take credit away from him, he made the interceptions. Huge credit to Kevin Byard there. And with Tyreek Stevenson making another interception, with Noah Sewell forcing a fumble early in the game. Like the defense is eating. They're chomping at the bit right now, and that's a huge credit to Dennis Allen. But for my baddest man, I had to mention Byard and Tyreek Stevenson, but I'm going with a moniker for a player, I guess, or like a pseudonym for a player, like his alter ego, and that's Greased Up Deaf Guy. Caleb Williams is greased up deaf guy when stuff is going right, when he's in the pocket and there's danger around him. No one can catch him. No one can find him. The Bears cannot win this game without Caleb Williams turning into greased up deaf guy, because he just found some crazy plays. He only had 13 rushing yards. A lot of it was finding space to make throws. But I'll tell you what, there will be nothing more frustrating for the Raiders defensive line than watching back this tape and watching Caleb just make them look foolish all game long, because they couldn't catch him. One sack, and that was in the first half. They were getting pressure on him. They couldn't close, and he was making plays against their pressure. Greased up deaf guy to me is he's the biggest reason the Bears are able to take that lead in the fourth quarter, is because he just goes on "you can't catch me" mode and makes everyone look foolish around him.
It's not even that. Like, Caleb Williams, his life is not easy right now. Like, there is no semblance of a running game at all with the Chicago Bears. And so the Raiders knew today, most of the time, it was going to be pass. He threw the ball 37 times today. Only completed 22 out of those 37. Again, the numbers don't look great, and the numbers aren't great. But when you think of the context of him basically, as you mentioned, running for his life practically every snap, especially in that first half, And yeah, he was only sacked one time. That's to his credit, because right now that defense is zoning in on him. He doesn't have a back that he can get the pressure eased off of him for. And so, yeah, I think, and having that last drive at the end of the game as just kind of the culmination of all his hard work, I think was a fantastic story.
Yeah. Ron?
I was going to say, I think the NFL has been, maybe just football in general, is so focused on the mobile quarterback. But I think everybody thinks a mobile quarterback is that he can take off and run when shit hits the fan. And to me, I think the guys that can do that when they need to, but rather are mobile in the sense of they know how to navigate a pocket and avoid pressure while still looking for the play downfield, is critically more important. Patrick Mahomes is really good at that. Aaron Rodgers has always been very good at that. Ben Roethlisberger was very good at that in a lot of ways too, right? Some of the best quarterbacks in NFL history might not have been mobile in the sense of sprint speed and things like that, but feel and agility around the pocket in order to extend things when the protection's not always going to be there, to get that extra half a second to make a throw downfield, to make a big play, makes a huge difference. And Seth sharing some crazy stats here about Caleb. He says fourth quarter, I think this is over the course of the season, he's 12 of 19, and he's 18 of 26 for 239 yards on third down. Insane numbers.
927 yards an attempt right there.
Yeah, 927 yards passing on the season, 8-2, and just sacked 7 times. I mean, he's on pace for only 30 this year after, 58 a year ago, I believe was the exact number. Sixth ranked, try to say that 10 times fast, in QBR. Man, he's getting it done. And I'll tell you what, Q, there's nothing I enjoy more than a good moniker of greased up deaf guy to describe Caleb Williams.
It's great. And during the draft process, 2 years ago, and we had our building the board and all the shows, talking through all the positions, and it was like we were talking about Caleb Williams. It was the elite quarterback prospects. You need to be able to identify their superpower, right? Like, what is their one thing that sets them apart? And it's like Caleb's arm is outstanding, right? Like we all, like, we've seen it, we know that his arm power is outstanding, his arm talent to be able to hit different slots is outstanding, and his ability to hit with different clubs, to get the loft, to get the bullet, to be able to do everything in between is very good. Like, about as good as it gets. But I never felt like that was his superpower. To me, his superpower was always his pocket management. And yes, that leads to some ugly sacks where it's like he's trying to do too much. But at the same time, it ends in stuff like today where he has eyes in the back of his head on some of these. I swear to God, I don't know how he, the feel there for where the danger is, when it's there, and how to evade it it's different than almost any quarterback in the league. And that's, to me, that is his superpower, and greased up deaf guy is his superhero name. It's great. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get to our next segment here.
The nicest man.
Starting with Sonny this time. Who was your nicest man on the Bears today?
Now, there was a couple guys I want to pick here as well, but I think the culmination of my frustrations in that first half peaked with that Drew Dahlman snap that went past Caleb Williams. And with all the money that we paid Drew and not just Drew, just the offensive line in general, to have that awful of a first half was extremely frustrating for me to watch. And so for me, I'm just gonna nominate Drew. Just, you can't do that. If the Bears are gonna make that sort of investment in you, it's already a rough first half to begin with. Don't make stupid mistakes like that.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see what the tape looks like for Drew this week, because that one was very tough. And I felt like the interior of the O-line held up fine in pass pro today, but they really couldn't move the football, which again will be interesting to review on the tape, or on the ground. They couldn't move the football, which will be interesting to review on the tape. But like you said, that can't happen. It's a loud environment. It's you're still learning your chemistry with this quarterback, with the rest of the O-line, the silent count aspect of it. I was surprised how loud that environment was, considering how much we heard about how many Bears fans were there. But it was sounded very loud on TV. But teams playing loud road stadiums all the time. you don't see that happen that often. So I'm with you, Sonny. That can't happen. I think that's a good pick there. Ron, where are you going for your nicest man?
I'm not venturing very far from Mr. Dolman, but it's a collective of two are my nicest men, and those are the offensive tackles of the Chicago Bears, because there was no Darnell Wright today, and Braxton Jones eventually left the game, and that left the Canadian Eagle and the young buck from Boston College to man the anchors, and holy shit. Talk about welcome to the NFL. You better learn on the fly, Big Pimp. Otherwise, you are going to be sent into the stars. Ozzie Trapillo and Theo Benedict had rough days. Max Crosby made his impact. They benefited a lot from said greased up deaf guy that wears number 18 in blue and orange. I give them credit. So this is not a boo boo, you suck, you're awful, I don't ever want to see you in Bears uniform again. But this was a very welcome to the NFL type game for those two, because a lot of pressure was put on them. And I'll tell you what, another credit to Ben Johnson. When usually when your O-line gets hit with injuries, that's when shit can really hit the fan. I think we saw that with the Chiefs a year ago when Dooney was having to play tackle. Things can go really bad when severe injuries beat up your front five. Having a system that Ben Johnson does that is very O-line beneficial showed today, and how they were able to manage through that adversity of Braxton Jones going down, having Darnell Wright on the sidelines in street clothes, and asking two incredibly young and inexperienced tackles to step up in a not even your own stadium, in a hostile environment such as Allegiant, who seems to be a great place to play, albeit I heard very cookie cutter from people on the ground there. Neither here nor there. Seems like a great place to play. Crazy environment, as you guys mentioned, with the snaps. And with Dolman, they were nice. They gave Max Crosby, they made him feel good today. But greased up deaf guy quickly evaporated all of his excitement, because that guy was just nasty.
Well, it's interesting. I'm really interested to see how the grade or how the tape grades out for both those guys too, especially Trapillo, because as I was thinking through the end of the game, I was like, I didn't notice Trapillo that much in a bad manner, but I felt like he played fine. But then I'm like, but how much of that was just Caleb covering it up? Because I do feel like he covered up a lot of blemishes today, which again, it's a rookie first career game ever asked to play in a rowdy road environment. Like that's gonna happen. And it's gonna be ugly more often than not, especially when you're forced into action like that. But I don't know. I felt okay about it until I started thinking like, well, if Caleb did so great evading the pressure, that pressure had to come from somewhere. So I'm interested to see where that grade ends up for both those guys, but especially Trapillo.
Definitely.
Now for me, my list was, guys, it's got to be Cole Kmet. This is what happens when I say something nice about Cole Kmet. Last week he was I was praising him on the O-line show, and I put out on Twitter, Cole Kmet's one of the best blocking tight ends in the NFL this year. He's making a case for the best blocking tight end in the league. He comes out here, he whiffs on like 3 drops, 2 penalties. There were a few moments blocking where I was like, I was perplexed as to what he was doing, or like what he missed there. There was one rep where it looked like he might have had the play call wrong, which again might have had something to do with the noise in the stadium. But I was very disappointed in Cole Kmet's performance today. I'm sure he's very disappointed in his performance today. But frankly, for a guy with his contract, it's a tough look when you have this type of game.
You missed Loveland. The fact that it's like you had an opportunity with the first round pick tight end not being able to play, and you didn't jump with it. I think Cole was probably the guy who I had in mind as well. He just slipped my mind, so I went with Drew. But yeah, Cole was just incredibly frustrating. Again, you just talk about mistakes that you should not be making, and those 2 offsides penalty, false starts penalties was just drove me crazy, because you're a veteran at this point. It's one thing if you're a rookie getting challenged by the environment that you're in. But Cole's been on this team for a while now, and for him to be making those mistakes, it's the same sort of frustrations I had with Drew earlier.
I do wonder how much. Obviously, the drops are easier to segregate from his blocking work, right?
Mhm.
And just saying like, that's just a bad drop. You can't do that, man. You're a tight end. You know how to catch the football. Like, get the job done. I wonder how much of the blocking stuff, though, might have been related to the fact that Loveland was not in there. And maybe instead of them being able to play matchups where Loveland and Kmet can kind of switch sides and do different things, it became so focal on Cole Kmet in kind of the more important situations where Smythe is just supportive in a lot of ways in whether it's the run game or the pass game, what have you. I wonder if that helped some of those mistakes glare a little bit brighter today from Cole than in the past, right? So again, I think this is the beauty of, I'll tell you what, gentlemen, I've grown a huge appreciation for watching tape in the aftermath because it tells a very different story than your initial eyes do. I'm hoping that's the case with blocking essence for Kmet, but you guys are still 100% correct, right? There's a lot of other things, the penalties especially, right? I think the penalties are almost worse than the drops, believe it or not. Because that's just really shooting yourself in the foot. At least the
drop 0 yards. It's lost down, but it's 0 yards. Penalties,
right. You're not losing
10 on the false start. Like,
exactly. You're not losing yards, and you're also potentially still setting something up for later because now they have to respect you were open on that play. That's why the ball went to you, right? There's things that can build off of that could be positive, whereas you put it perfectly, Q, right? Yeah, worst case scenario, it's 0 yards and you live to see another day. Penalties can totally destroy momentum, can ruin a drive. So sometimes those are almost even more inexcusable. So still a rough day for Cole Kmet, but I do wonder, was there a different emphasis on his importance in the scheme because there isn't that balance of having two threats in the playmaking game downfield as well as at the line of scrimmage as blockers?
Now to the point with penalties, I feel like I need to bring this up. We've witnessed Aaron Rodgers for years erase 2nd and 20, erase 2nd and 15, 3rd and 15, 1st and 20, whatever it is. I'm pretty sure I've seen Aaron Rodgers convert 3rd and 30 against the Bears before. Have you ever seen a Bears quarterback doing it at the rate that Caleb is right now?
No, fantastic point.
It's one of the strongest cases for Caleb, in my opinion, that you can have is like you never feel like you're out of the down and distance with him so far this year and at points last year where it was just like he can convert some of the most difficult situations an offense faces, which is those post-penalty moments. You don't want to rely on it. You don't want to ask him to, but like he's shown the ability to, which is really impressive to me. But getting back to the bad or the nicest man aspect, my other one that I had listed here was the run lane integrity on defense. This you were the Raiders get right game for their run game today. They simplified stuff, definitely. They found some answers. Like there was no way they were going to continue run blocking as poorly as they have this year because like Ashton Jeanty had more yards after contact than he had yards on the season. But they didn't look like a struggling run team today. Like you let them get right against you, and that has to be mentioned in the nicest man segment.
Well said.
But from there, let's get to our final segment here.
Keys to victory.
All right, this is the time where we review our keys to victory that we laid out a few days ago when we were talking about the preview for this game. And our first key to victory that we discussed was, Ron, it was yours, saying, don't make this a boring game. Take calculated shots early. Don't get complacent. You need to capitalize on big momentum swing moments. Ron, how do you think they did that today?
I think they sure as hell kept it interesting. It wasn't a boring game, I'll tell you that. Maybe not for the reasons that we certainly wanted, but I think at the core of it, though, they took advantage of the big moment, right? I love Scott's comment here because it generates a good chuckle. How didn't you have blocking a field goal in the keys to victory? But that's exactly it. It's capitalizing on momentum shifting plays. And that was a momentum shifter. Obviously, it was the end of the game, but there was a number of those, right? The late drive to kind of get right and get into that position to score, the defense being able to hold up after a really, really tough kick return in the Raiders' favor at the end there to give them a chance for the field goal. So many different things where they stepped up in big moments. It wasn't a boring game. They maybe didn't take they didn't have the big plays like they did against Dallas per se at all times, but they still had those get it done when you need to get it done kind of moments. And it sure as hell wasn't a boring game. So especially if we're just narrowing it to focus on that, don't make this a boring game. Well, they sure shit didn't make it boring, because I think we were all sweating it down until that clock hit 0.
Yeah, I definitely was anxious about it. I think I scared my dog a few times during the game. But it's hysterical. He gets this look at me like, is everything okay? Like, are we safe?
Are you good, Dad? Why are you screaming?
But
what is this poor team doing to your health?
Exactly. Especially my wife's out of town, so I'm that much louder during it. But anyways.
Oh, yeah. Today the dog was like, are you sure you're good?
Yeah. He sees the full level of the sickness. But second key of the game that we had here, and this was one of Brendan's, but I'm going to toss it to you, Sonny, was to keep the sin out of Sin City by avoiding pre-snap penalties and self-imposed errors. How do you think the Bears did that today?
Big giant F. Big giant fail for that one. Again, luckily, it wasn't so much that it was ultimately insurmountable. But yeah, that first half was just incredibly frustrating. And it's a lot of players that you wouldn't expect to be making those type of errors. But again, hats off to the defense who kept us in that game and kept us in position to win that game, and gave Caleb Williams the platform to ultimately do what, as he and Ben Johnson said, was born to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think they got lucky on some of this, where like they made plenty of self-imposed mistakes, like you're getting at, but they didn't end up biting them in the end. If they didn't make those mistakes, I think that this game might have been an easier win. But they did, and they ended up in this bad spot because, I mean, frankly, Geno Smith helped the Bears a lot today with those 3 picks. Like that I don't know where this game would be without that, but those penalties, they were able to keep them, penalties and poor moments, they're able to keep it from snowballing totally on them, which gives them a little bump in the grade, I guess I'd say.
And it's one of those where, a good football team would have beaten you pretty soundly today with all the mistakes that you made. Like, we're kind of fortunate the schedule lined up that we had a really bad football game against another team that isn't very good. Because if you played even an above average football team, I think today, you would have gone home with a loss.
Well, and I can't help but wonder how much it's like, I don't think the Bears offense has a ton of confidence on the road. Historically, like Caleb's numbers on the road are much worse than home in general in his career. And I think the offense's execution is not at a point where they can feel that confident executing in a hostile environment like they do at home in a friendly environment. And it's something that grows as you find success and more success and more familiarity with the scheme. But they're still in the infancy stage of that. And I think it's something to watch going forward as they have road games of like, how smoothly can this offense operate in these hostile environments? But moving on here to the final key, and this one was mine, the don't sleep on the Raiders. Chicago's the more talented team on paper, but don't underestimate the Raiders. And as I've spoken to many times already in this podcast, Pete Carroll's a son of a bitch. Like, he is a spark plug of a head coach. You guys remember when he took over the Seahawks in 2010? The Seahawks, the 2 years before that, were 9-23. They were awful. Then they go 9-7 or 7-9, winning the division, winning the NFC West. So like they had to scrape and claw for that to win that division. And then they upset the Saints in the playoffs, the 11-5 Saints with the Beastquake run. Like, Pete Carroll's teams have no doubt. They have no questions. They're just going to punch you in the mouth, figure it out now, and ask questions later. And I think the Bears did sleep on them in the first half. Like coming into this game, I think they were a little more complacent than I'd like coming into it, but they woke up. They woke up and they punched back in the second half, and that's big to me. So, like, if I were putting a letter grade on this, I'd give like a C+, because they woke up and ended up winning and responding strongly. But I do think they were a little passive in that first half with the way that they came into this game, and that's kind of what this whole key was like, keep that foot on the gas. Like, you cannot let up against this team.
You almost wonder how much of it is if they slept on the Raiders or didn't sleep, because I think there's also something to be said too with the transition for these Central and Eastern teams going west, right? We saw it, I think, with a very good Colts team today, sustaining their first loss to the Los Angeles Rams in their own building out in SoFi. Raiders putting up a fight, right? Like there is a kind of a West Coast advantage when it's not the West Coast teams. I think that's why they all beat the shit out of each other, because they're like, yeah, we're used to it. We know what we're doing here. So perhaps the Bears, to your point, Q, slept on the Raiders a little bit. But maybe after not getting some sleep, they got right in all facets of the mental and physical side of the game and pulled through when they needed to at the end.
And fun question here for you from Scott. How many first-round picks would you guys give for Max Crosby?
A lot. Especially if he plays like that.
So, Ron?
I have no number, because I'd say a number and people would shame me for it. So I'm good.
So I'm just going to take a logical approach. Micah Parsons got 2 first-round picks and Kenny Clark, right? There might have been another. I think the Cowboys might have gotten something else back in that, like maybe a late round pick back or something. But so that's the baseline for a star edge rusher. Micah Parsons is considered better than Max Crosby. I think I would take Max Crosby over Micah Parsons personally. But to me, in the perception, Micah Parsons is better. 2 first-round picks is probably my ceiling to make that trade. And you compare it to the Khalil Mack trade, the Bears gave less than 2 first-round picks because they got picks back with Khalil Mack. So, like, there's like a 2 would be the top of the top for me. But anyways, gentlemen, any final thoughts here before we close this thing out?
You know, I mentioned it earlier. Like, we've played 4 games. 3 of them not very good. Some might say downright bad. And to come through these 4 games and be 2-2 with the injuries that we've had, and now we get to hopefully heal a little bit during this bye week. I'm trying to figure out how good this football team is. And so I'm genuinely curious. Well, what's your guys' opinion?
It all depends on how much the offense can find consistency. In my mind, this defense is going to stay susceptible versus the run. But one of the reasons you went out and hired Dennis Allen is because he is a floor raiser on your defense. He is, like I said earlier, he's a card counter. He's a gambler. And you trust his ability to find vulnerabilities throughout the game and put players in positions to take advantage of them, like we saw today. So, like, to me, the defense it's bad. Against good teams, it's going to look worse than it did the last 2 weeks. But against bad teams, it's going to continue to look good, I think, as long as you can keep the game script in your favor. So, to me, it comes down to the offense's ability to keep that game script in your favor, which is still a large to be determined. Like with the run game, that's a huge factor of that. So to me, they're like I'd say something around a 9-8, 8-9 team in my mind right now, who's going to beat the bad teams, beat the mediocre teams, because I trust in Caleb's fourth quarter ability, but struggle against the true good teams.
I think there's also an element of it that this Bears team is they're weathering a lot of adversity early, right? We heard Dennis Allen speak so highly about Kyler Gordon on numerous occasions. we still haven't even seen what he looks like in this scheme yet, and if he can be a true difference maker and X factor. Losing Jalen for as long as they have certainly hurts, but a lot of guys have stepped up. What does TJ Edwards look like in this defense? Do they get marginally better? I don't know. Austin Booker's return, Q. You've mentioned that before, right? In this episode. What does this team look like at full health? And I think that's why the bye week coming now is almost fascinating, because it's like they had so much early season adversity. You know, everybody thinks, oh, you'll have mid-season adversity. You want that bye week in the middle of the year. It's like sometimes you just need it early. Sometimes it's just about getting right before things can go south. And I think the Bears have done what they needed to do. They've weathered the storm. You're 2-2. You could have probably been 3-1 had a couple of plays gone the other way. And now you got time to heal. And now we see kind of maybe what the next difference is. Some of that next step is also just more cohesion on the offensive side, as Q alluded to. So I think they're healing at the right time. I think there's a lot of opportunity because of the early bye week for everybody to get back on the same page or get further on the same page because of the extra week of a little bit of learning. Like they're gonna learn a little bit. Yeah, they're gonna take time to heal and things like that, but they're gonna work, right? Like there's work to be done here for these guys, and they want it bad. So I don't know how good this Bears team can be, but I'm excited enough because of the amount of pieces that have yet to be seen or fully understood as a part of the greater model. I think this team's more intriguing after the bye week than they were before. I think that's a lot of fun.
Ron, to your point about putting in work, there was I want to say it was Olamide Zacchaeus, maybe last week, who he was getting interviewed about something, and he said that, you know, right before when they broke from camp, but before the season, you know, there's a little break, and Ben Johnson's telling the guys, like, take your time off, take your time away from football with your family, like, you know, get right mentally and take care of yourself. And then only after, you know, they broke down and everyone was like getting their stuff and getting out, Olamide Zacchaeus goes to Ben Johnson. He's like, so what are you doing during the break? And Ben Johnson goes, the way Olamide Zacchaeus put it was like, starts shaking a little bit. And he goes, I can't turn it off. I'm going to be here. Like, they're going to be working during the bye in some extent. At very least, like, even if they give the players the week off, the coaches are going to be in the lab figuring some stuff out. So I love that point from you, Ron, that they're going to be putting in some work while they're getting right. But for me, I got some final thoughts here that kind of relay back to what I discussed last week. Last week, we talked about the importance of stacking good practices into good performances and stacking those good performances into wins. And that's how you stack wins, and how it all gets easier to work as a player, to push players as a coach from that point. And that's how you raise the expectations within the building. That was in danger this afternoon, in my mind. But we saw a full team win, including contributions from the offense, the defense, and the special teams unit against a Raiders team that is as hungry as anyone out there. The Raiders punched the Bears square in the jaw today, and the Bears stood up to the challenge. That type of win projects very well for the culture going forward. A Bears culture that sorely needed a change, and it got a shot in the arm today. Now, this team gets to take that into the bye week, get some rest, and get healthy for the grind of the rest of the season. This was a game I had them losing coming into this season. I did not think, like, I had them winning their first three, but this being the trap game. But after the 0-2 start, this became a must win. And they found a way. So now they get to get rested, get healthy, and they're on to the Washington football team in 2 weeks, where hopefully they can get a little revenge on Jaden Daniels. But, gentlemen, anything else you'd like to add?
No.
Nothing from me.
All right, then let's get out of here with a good old-fashioned bear down and go enjoy some Sunday night football.
Bear down, baby.
Good, better, best, bear down.
Bear down.